In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Oh, you magnificent bastard, I read your book.
I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Saloon. I'm BZ. I poured the drinks here. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K. A mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building at 10th and L Streets downtown. Be forewarned, what you're about to hear consists of my opinion only for the next 2 hours, or so, and no one else's. And of course, because of the fear porn that has gripped this nation, the Saloon still isn't open. Thanks, Gavin. But I'm still serving stiff drinks. Fact, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense out the back door. A reminder, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Right here in the Saloon, we talk about politics, religion, crime, culture, race, economics, science, sex, war, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze is not. This is 2020. I continue to say I am done with bipartisanship and compromise. It's war. We are at war. Make no mistake, I pull no punches. This is war. And if you don't treat it like war, you're going to get steamroller. Because the other side literally now wants you dead. And they make no bones about it. Welcome to Sergeant Booker, the Alaskan, Mike in chat. Thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate it. For the first half hour, 45 minutes or so, I'm going to have the return of Mike Fitzpatrick, who is the founder and CEO of NCX Group. He is a cybersecurity expert. He is a strategist. He has been a keynote speaker in a whole bunch of different areas and venues. he is now into podcasting. And so without any further ado, here's ado. Now I'm taking it all back. There will be no further ado. Mike Fitzpatrick, welcome, and how do you do, sir?
Hey, BZ, I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. Hey, how about them Dodgers?
You know, it was exciting. It was a lot of fun watching, and I didn't watch a lot of the series simply because of the whole BLM stuff that was going on. But I watched the final game or two. It brought back a memory of my dad and I at the 1988 World Series. We were there the night after the Kirk Gibson home run. We had great seats in the dugout seats right on the field in between the two dugouts at the time. And sitting next to me was Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett.
Really?
And they had a massive fight that night. And Ryan O'Neal kicked Farrah Fawcett to the curb, and I'm going, what the heck is that guy thinking?
Ooh, ow, ooh. Back in 1988, wow.
Yeah, sent her home in a limo, and he stayed and watched the game. And I'm going, man, somebody's going to see that, and it's going to end up in the National Enquirer tomorrow, Dad. I'm going to tell you. And sure enough, within about 4 days, National Enquirer, same bit. But no, it was such a great night. It was one of the few times that it was just ever my dad and I at a ball game. Usually the rest of the family's there and all that. So it was really great. I thought it absolutely sucked that COVID has done this to where my son and I couldn't go to a game and have that same experience. So next year.
You're speaking as though your dad passed away.
My dad passed 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, again, that's another reason why going to something like that is so very, very special. I only learned any number of things about my dad after my mom passed away. She passed away in 2002, right after 9/11. She had COPD. She lived to see her 80th birthday. And then my dad passed away in 2009. Only after her passing did I happen to learn a whole bunch of things about Dad that I had no idea existed. That's a story for another day. But in any event, and thanks to welcome to Jeremy Hansen and Claudia who are watching on Facebook or in Facebook chat right now. So tonight what I'd like to do, we had a little winkly thing 2 days ago called an election. Well, it was federal, but it was also involved the state of California, always spell it with a K as well, and some interesting things passed just as everyone is afeared of. What happens in California generally affects the rest of the nation. And again, I emphasize the reason I sometimes talk about California, I like to make things larger on a more umbrella, larger type scale. But I talk about California when I do because what you see in California, make no mistake, leftists want to engage on a national scale. So whatever you see California look like, be what it embraces, what its political denizens do, that's exactly what they want to do to your state if you happen to be living in a left state, which is why I mention a whole bunch of things about California every now and then, though I do not dwell on it because I live in it. I see it every day, and that's enough for me. Mike Fitzpatrick, I've had you here a whole bunch of times before. Can you tell people a little bit about you and any of your websites or social media that you'd care to mention, please, sir?
Sure. BZ, we work with companies to try to clear the clutter that goes along with cybersecurity these days. I don't care what size business it is. Every business today is struggling with cybersecurity. And my firm, we work with clients to find the vulnerabilities and risks and develop strategies for mitigating those risks and finding the holes before the hackers find the holes, in other words, to deal with today's environment and today's world. And it's more complex now from a cybersecurity standpoint because of COVID. You've got businesses around the country and around the globe, quite frankly, that had to go from a fully brick and mortar business with some mobile to everybody working remote within 24 hours in most cases. There's not a single plan for that. So we help businesses develop plans and risk mitigation strategies for cybersecurity, business continuity, and incident response. And we've been doing this now for about 18 years. You can find us on our website, www.ncxgroup.com, and that's ncxgroup.com. And you can find me on social media on Twitter at ncxgroup and on Facebook at ncxgroup. Trying to think where else. I think there's also an Instagram out there with the same. But so that's where I'm at, where you can find me. And the new podcast is Bite Size Security, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Anchor FM.
Okay, tell us about your podcast. The reason, okay, we're going to go a little inside baseball here just for a second, folks, if you don't mind. Because kind of like Jeremy Hansen, I'm a bit of a mic geek and a board radio equipment type geek. So you just started your podcast, and in the process of doing so, you got what I consider to be one of the coolest boards, programmers for podcasters these days possible. And then on top of that, you got a really cool mic. But to enable you to do your podcast, and what's it called, and when can they hear it, and what's it about?
Okay, so the podcast is called Bite Size Security. And the premise behind it is to take something complex, boil it down to a simple 3 to 5 minutes in most cases, and have a discussion around it.
Okay.
It's designed for business executives and business owners. I try not to get technical. I try to stay out of the weeds. We try to talk about data privacy, legislation, things that can come back and bite you squarely if you don't do them properly from a cybersecurity perspective. And like I said, you can find it. You can find the podcast. And I'm still working into a rotation, but there's some older shows there that are on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Anchor FM, and about, I think, 13 other platforms.
Okay.
And I'm using the Rodecaster Pro tonight to talk to you, which it's a great board and makes it simple for even non-professionals like myself to sound pretty good.
You also, folks, we're going to get on with our cybersecurity stuff, okay? I'm just a geek about this. I geek out on this stuff. You have a UniQ microphone. What is it?
The microphone that I'm using is a Mojave, MA301.
Okay.
It's a studio quality condenser mic. A friend of mine is an ambassador for Mojave, and he's a record producer. So this is one of their top end studio mics that most of the celebrity artists that you would think of out there would use in studio. So I ended up with a great price on it, and said, okay, since I'm now stuck because of COVID, and I've had over 50 speaking engagements canceled, how can I get back to talking to people? And so podcast, it's a natural fit. I've done it off and on for probably 10 years now. And, it's a pretty simple way to at least communicate and stay out of the noise of being on endless webinars, because I get 15 invites at least a day to a webinar.
Well, and the other thing is that's cool, and the reason that I wanted to get you on the show initially in the first place is because you were on Melanie Collette's show, Money Talk with Melanie. Once I heard you there and the ease with which you talk to people and how you can make issues revolving around cybersecurity so easily understandable and digestible, clearly you've done this a time or two. So that's another reason that I think that your podcast would probably be very, very, very engaging. Hey, welcome to 3 more viewers, the Alaskan Simone, Mike, and Sergeant Booker in SHR Media chat, Jeremy Hansen, Claudia Cheek in Facebook chat. So welcome to everybody there. We started talking the last time that you were here, and here's where California ends up Californicating the rest of the nation. We spoke about the CCPA. No, that's not the Communist Party of China. That's the California Consumer Privacy Act, which ended up screwing all the rest of the states in the union after that was passed here in California. Always spell it with a K. So Mike Fitzpatrick, cybersecurity expert with whom I am speaking right now, folks, can you give us a little bit of an overview about the CCPA? Because from there, we're going to go into Prop 24, which was passed on Election Day here in California. Always spell it with a K, and what 24 does and how it's dovetailed with the California Consumer Privacy Act, which, oh, Mike, I wouldn't even know where to start on the CCPA. So over to you.
Okay, so real fast, the history of California Consumer Privacy Act, and some of the elements of it, the intention was good. It was developed by a real estate developer out of San Francisco that has absolutely no experience in data privacy or cybersecurity, but he decided to write a ballot measure, trying to force the issue. And like I said, it was well-intentioned, not well conceived, and not well thought out. In the deep, dark halls of Sacramento, between a Democrat assembly and Democrat governor and a Democrat Senate, controlled Senate, they took this ballot measure and made it a law within 24 hours. And at the end of June or July, I guess it was at the time before session expired. And so with that, it came off of the ballot in 2018. They made it a law. It was so poorly conceived that there are 45 plus amendments to this law.
Holy crap.
To this one law, there's 45 amendments. There were so many last year as it came into December and they had to finalize something. They took a basket of 20 of the 45 and worked with those, and 5 of those amendments became additions to the law. CCPA was supposed to go into effect for businesses over $25 million in revenue that were selling our data. Like I said, the intention is good, to protect our privacy, give us ownership of our own data, make sure that the companies can't just, profit off of it. So that's a good thing. The implementation of it and not understanding the complexity of cybersecurity is something else. So it became law officially July 1st, 2020.
Okay.
So it's only been law since July 1st this year. And now they come out with Prop 24, which is CCPA 2.0. Now, every consumer privacy or every consumer protection organization out there, the ACLU is against it. Consumer Reports was against this. One of my favorite organizations, and I mean this sincerely, these guys do yeoman's work in the digital world, and that's the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Right.
These guys are fantastic. And so even they were against Prop 24. One of the elements that was really cool in CCPA is wherever you go as a Californian, your privacy had to be protected. That was one of the key elements. You have ownership of it. Well, with Prop 24, and again, it's put together by the same real estate guy. It's 52 pages long, all kinds of nuance in there. One of the big things is Prop 24, with this now being passed, it prevents the Assembly or the Senate, the legislature, to make changes to it. It goes through and it sets up a privacy agency here in California. It takes it out of the Attorney General's office, which I'm fine with that. But it sets up this privacy, but the legislation and the law of it now cannot be changed. One of the things that I think is really horrible in it is that now our privacy ends at the state borders. So if you're on your mobile device and you cross into Arizona, or if you're going to Vegas on a ammo run, you're no longer protected as a California citizen. Your data, your privacy, all of those things. And I forget his name. His goal is to try to make this like the EU's GDPR. Well, GDPR is really about building a cybersecurity program within your organization. Everybody else around the globe owns their identities naturally. We're one of the few countries in the world that when I go to a forum and I sign in and I give you my email address and I give you my my information for a white paper on a subject, that is now that company's intellectual property rather than mine. But the rest of the world doesn't view it that way. So he's fixated on that, but he doesn't understand the background of why they have that ownership. And it's passed. It's now law. We're now stuck with it. It's unfortunate. I voted no on it, but then again, I knew what I was looking at.
I voted no on it because I looked at Tom McClintock, who, except for a couple of issues, I mostly agree with. He wrote that when in doubt, just say no. And he said the measure purports to expand consumer privacy. But just like you mentioned, Mike Fitzpatrick, he said the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a consumer privacy group, calls it, quote, a mixed bag of partial steps backwards and forwards. What he said is this is really, really clear. What it's going to do is it's going to unleash a new regulatory agency requiring more money with vast powers to prosecute businesses that run afoul of the increasingly intricate consumer privacy laws in California. And he quantifies it as another nail in the coffin of the Golden State. Question for you, Mike Fitzpatrick. To me, this seems incredibly obvious, but I don't live day by day in the world of cybersecurity, or my handling anything digital, as everybody here well knows. I'm a gibbering baboon when it comes to anything digital. I am a technical Luddite with anything technical at all. But I always go back to the initial question, or maybe I just don't understand the complexity of what this would mean, is why can't we own all of our information? No one, absent our specific approval, can keep any digital information about us, period, end of statement. To me, that seems resoundingly, staggeringly simple. So I must be really, really, really wrong with that. Where am I wrong, Mike Fitzpatrick?
Ideally, that would be the case. Australia does that. Europe does that. Like I said, most of the rest of the free world does that. And so I don't disagree with it. The problem is, in our view of the world, it becomes part of a company's intellectual property. It's part of what makes companies valuable. It's part of what has grown really, and I'm looking for something here as we're talking. I'm pulling it up. There's a book that I'm reading, and I'm looking for it as we're going here. It really gets into social capitalism and understanding how companies like Facebook and Google monetize us, the human batteries, for their existence, going back to the Matrix reference. It isn't about the information that we give them as much as it is how they gain our attention, how they're using addictive technologies to keep our attention and keep us going back to Facebook so they can put more ads in front of us. A couple of great documentaries out there.
Yeah, I was hoping you were going to mention this. Oh, yeah. Tell people about these. These are great.
And these are must watches. I mean, this is not a get it when you can. This is, when you're finishing listening to BZ and you have time today, tomorrow, go to Netflix and watch The Social Dilemma. It is really interesting because the people involved in this documentary that are interviewed in this documentary, one of them is the founder of Pinterest. The other is high-ranking executives from Twitter and Facebook. Matter of fact, the guy that developed the like button in Facebook, talking about how what they developed has gone horribly, horribly wrong, and how it's being used in ways that it was never intended, that it is way off track. The other documentary that was really good that I saw recently is called The Great Hack, and it gets into the Cambridge Analytica information and how Cambridge Analytica was taken down because of what was seen as a breach through Facebook, if you remember. And as you go into this documentary, it wasn't necessarily a breach per se, as it was that they had access. And these were people originally working on the Ted Cruz campaign that rolled into the Trump campaign in 2016 and looking at not high propensity voters, but those that were on the fringes, those that were persuadables, as they called it. And so these persuadables, they were targeted with just relentless ads, utilizing the same technology as we would use with the CIA and a PSYOP. And so, but these people also came out of the Obama campaign in 2008, 2012, too. I love how they feel remorse now. But maturity does that. So there are two great documentaries that really get into this, what is called surveillance capitalism. And it comes down to pushing you for your attention, keeping your screen time up, keeping you engaged with different content so that they can sell you more stuff. It's about influencing you. It's about your confirmation bias. It's about, when you go to Google, if you're a believer in climate change, you're going to type in something that says climate change is, and then it will have something positive. If you're conservative and you don't necessarily believe that narrative, you'll come up with climate change is a hoax. Climate change is... So they feed your bias, and that separates us from each other more and more. And that's why we're starting to feel all of this spinning out of control and no connection to anybody outside of our belief system.
Well, it's all purposeful, and it makes money.
Lots of money.
I'm almost through with The Social Dilemma. The Great Hack is going to be next. But essentially, the gist of it is, as you indicated, these are people that are saying, oh, you have no idea what's going on. Sometimes we have no idea what's going on. And would it be safe? I'm going to go to a break here in just a second. Would it be safe, Mike Fitzpatrick, to say that the massive dragon has escaped the cage and there's no putting it back? Or is there?
Oh, there's no putting it back.
Okay.
I think the only way you put it back, DZ, is the FCC 230 changes that need to be made related to Twitter, Facebook, and the rest of these social platforms, because they're not platforms anymore. They're now censoring, now editing, and now banning. That needs to change.
Okay, when we come back, folks, we're talking to Mike Fitzpatrick, who is a cybersecurity expert. In the second hour, we'll get into a whole bunch of audio cuts. The election, oh my God, the stuff to talk about. When we get back, I want to go a little bit into Section 230 and what that means with Mike Fitzpatrick. It seems as though everyone has said something similar to, certainly Republicans and a lot of people that I see on social media that I've spoken to before. That involves the First Amendment. Don't touch that. That is sacrosanct. When we come back, I'm going to ask Mike Fitzpatrick about Section 230 and pose this question. Really, is it sacrosanct or can we change it? I'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. Hey, have you guys noticed? I've tried to make the breaks shorter so that I play all the promos at least once during the show, but they're a lot shorter, maybe 1 or 2 promos during a break. So I got 3 breaks total. At the end, I get them all in. So if you really, really, really have to drop a load on the giant toad, you won't be able to do it to these breaks anymore because they're not 5 minutes or more. Bad for you if you had a bad dinner. Okay for me because it kind of keeps things rolling along, so to speak. Folks, we are talking to Mike Fitzpatrick. Why did I ever go there? That's really weird. Okay, pound the social media, BZ. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit share. If you're watching on Facebook, please hit share. If you're watching on Spreaker, hit share. And before that, hit Sunny, but sadly, he passed away. I think he hit a tree many years ago while he was skiing. In any event, share on all my platforms, if you would, pretty please, kindly, with sugar on top. We're talking to Mike Fitzpatrick in the first hour, who is a cybersecurity expert. We were talking about social media. He was telling us about the great hack and also about the social dilemma, both of which I think, Mike, you can see on Netflix, can't you? Both of them?
Correct. They're both on Netflix.
Which I think is one of the strangest things imaginable, that Netflix doesn't mind you seeing all this stuff about social media. I kind of thought that, they removed Gone with the Wind, for God's sake. I thought, I didn't think that they were going to allow that stuff here, but they did. So take advantage of it while you can. The question I asked, and now I'd like to see if Mike Fitzpatrick has a good answer, which I believe he does, is it past time now, Mike Fitzpatrick, for the FCC or whatever organization would decide to remove Section 230 immunity from social media. And for those who don't know Section 230, it's a provision of the Communications Decency Act, and it was enacted in 1996. It's one of the most valuable tools, they think, for protecting freedom of expression and innovation on the Internet. It was kind of a funny surprise. The original purpose of the legislation was to actually restrict free speech on the Internet. And the Internet community as a whole, they objected strongly to the Communications Decency Act. And with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, with their help, the anti-free speech provisions were struck down by the Supreme Court. But CDA, Communications Decency Act, Section 230, remains and says something similar to this. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as a publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. So, Mike Fitzpatrick, can you tell us a little bit about what that actually means and maybe aimed at social media?
You know, I think maybe the best way to explain this is if I was explaining this to my grandmother.
That's me. Guilty.
Okay, so back in the day, when I was a young boy, I would go over to my grandmother's house, and I would pick up the phone, and there would be a party line.
Yeah.
And the party line, you could hear what all your neighbors were saying and what was there, and people were listening, and so the phone company kind of evolved from that, and you could have a phone conversation and talk to somebody about whatever you wanted to talk about. But the telephone company, even today, never gets in the middle of your conversation and censors you, shuts you down, tells you that that's not acceptable, and this doesn't have the right context with their fact checkers. So social media, Facebook, Twitter, Google, with YouTube, they have now gotten into uncharted territories. They are now playing referee with what is acceptable to the Borg mentality of the left. And if it doesn't fall within that, you end up in Facebook jail. I can't tell you how many friends I have that have ended up in Facebook jail.
That's me right now. I'm done for 30 days. And the last time I was for 30 days, they gigged me on one thing that they gigged me before, the exact same thing. I didn't do it again. They gigged me twice on the same one. The second time they gave me 30 days. This time they gave me 30 days. 30 days in the hole, because I had the temerity to reference a Gateway Pundit website about Hunter Biden's laptop, not in a post on my Facebook wall, no, in Messenger. 30 days gone, not coming back till November 24th. Thanks, Facebook.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, these companies have and I posted this today on Facebook. I said they're so ballsy today that they go through and they censor the President of the United States, good, bad, or indifferent. It's not their job to decide what people should hear.
No, and it's not.
That's the essence of 230, and that's the protection that they have that keep them from being sued for bad behavior. And so it gives them just license to do whatever they would like to do. And I in this particular sense, I think they've gotten out of control. I think that there needs to be some regulation. I'm also, I'm a constitutionalist. I'm probably more in the libertarian sense of the word. And so if there is the less government, the better in my mind.
Yep.
But I have to tell you, I think that social media, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, go down the list, is so detrimental to kids and their development. I think there needs to be some regulation around how old you have to be to have a social media account. I know that with our son, when he's even growing up, I mean, he has a father that is a cybersecurity expert. I talked to him about the good, the bad, the ugly of what's out there on the internet, and let him make the choice. And the choice he made was, he went with what our suggestion was, and that was not to have a social media profile. He still doesn't really.
You're serious?
And I got to.
Okay, I got to interrupt you right there. There is one kid in the United States that hasn't been raised in a nuclear missile silo or is a member of the Amish. There's one remaining kid in the United States who doesn't have a social media presence splayed all over the internet. You're serious?
Yeah, no, he's been raised around technology. He's a computer science major in college. I'm not going to say which university. He finds it pointless. And I got to tell you, for those parents out there that struggle with cyberbullying, if your kid's not on social media, they're not being bullied from a cyber standpoint.
Oh, boy.
So,
is that ever a truth right there? Holy crap.
So, we did that. And I think that there has to be, we have protections for kids for, you can't buy alcohol till you're 21. I mean, when I was a kid, it was 18. So now it's 21 because of Mothers Against Drug Drivers. Now we have 21 to buy cigarettes. What else is 21? So I mean, there's age restrictions on things, and I don't think it's. I think it should be restricted for kids because you're out there playing on an internet world with adults. The adults know that you're a kid, but you don't know that they're adults because they're pretending to be kids.
That brings up an entirely different issue. I had Kate Kraszewski on a couple of, last Thursday, as a matter of fact. And she is a warrior against pedophiles, etc., and has entered the world of human trafficking. She herself was trafficked at the age of 13 by a member of her family who owed a drug debt to others, and she was sold into sexual slavery at the age of 13 in order to pay off that debt. That's an issue for another day. But
no, I mean, it definitely is. And I'm huge fans of the guys over at Operation Underground Railroad and the work that they do. That is actually, there are dollars that go from NCX to that organizations like it each year, simply because we see the other side of it from time to time.
Yeah, well.
And, once you see it, you can't unsee that stuff.
No, absolutely.
And so, I'm a big proponent of finding a way to educate parents on this. I had a good friend, or have a good friend, whose daughter was talked out of his house by somebody off the internet. She was going through a tough time.
Oh, God.
Sounds a sympathetic voice. She tells her dad that she's going to an amusement park and that she's going to spend the night at Janie's house. And so, dad said okay, and it gets to Saturday, and it's about 4 PM, and she's still not home. And so dad starts calling the friend's house and said, no, she didn't spend the night here. So somebody drove BZ from Atlanta to Dallas.
Holy crap.
Picked her up at her father's home and then drove east with her. And through, I was giving him some help and some advice and things. It ended up being a happy ending. He got his daughter back. Most would not. But they you don't know who's in your house with you electronically each night.
No.
Who's on, and that's an issue that parents need to figure out how to tackle and how to address.
Let me ask you another very blunt question, Mike Fitzpatrick. Folks, I'm talking to Mike Fitzpatrick. He's been on here a number of times. He's CEO and founder of NCX Group, which is a cybersecurity battler, I should say. If you've been hacked, you go to them. They aim at businesses, but Mike knows just about everything in terms of cybersecurity. Because of that, I love to have him on here. Very smart, very cogent, very intelligent, is able to translate things into words that I can actually understand, because he translates that stuff properly for me, the big goofball. Mike Fitzpatrick, would you ever have an Alexa or a Siri or anything like that in your room, in your house?
Okay, I would not have an Alexa. I will not have Google anything anywhere around me. I do have an iPhone, and there is Siri on there, but it's when I want Siri.
Okay. All righty, but just having that little box on all the time seems like a really, really, really bad idea. Because
and to your point, I was just with the alarm system and cameras here at the house, I don't use anything from Ring. I don't use Nest. I don't use anything that's tied to a big corporate conglomerate that is going to sell it. I was just, before we started, I was reading an article from today and on the EFF. The police will pilot a program to live stream Amazon Ring cameras. So the Jacksonville police are going to have access to your Ring doorbells through Amazon so that they can watch your neighborhood remotely.
Okay, now wait just one moment, because I was a cop for 41 years. Is there any any permissions required in there? There must be.
It does not appear to be so.
So if you have one of those systems, say the Ring doorbell that has a camera on it, and if any local law enforcement agency somehow wants to fish around for someone that may be walking down the street or walking up to your door, or even you as you're coming into your driveway, etc., I want to make sure I understand, because to me this is incredibly important, being a conservative and a little L libertarian, probably not unlike you.
Right.
When I wanted to access something like that, what I had to do, and also when I was with the FBI, if I wanted a pen register or a title to record things, I had to go for a warrant. I had to get a warrant. I had to write an affidavit. I had to submit it to a judge. It had to be authorized, signed, in many cases endorsed by the DA and or the AUSA. And then I went trotting off with my warrant, and then I could get what I wanted, get what I needed. And if I didn't feel, if the judge, etc., legislating body didn't feel that I had enough PC, probable cause, for them to issue said warrant, I wasn't granted it. So are we now to the point where it appears that law enforcement can tap whatever at almost any time they wish?
It's, and I'm reading the original article, and it's actually not Jacksonville, Florida. It's Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay.
And here's what it says. Under the program, once a crime is reported, crime center officials will be able to access cameras in the area to determine escape routes, look for getaway vehicles, and the like. We'll be able to get a location, draw a circle around it, and pull up every camera within a radius to see if someone runs out of a building. We can follow and trace them. The pilot program will last 45 days and will not cost the city anything for this enhanced
violation of privacy.
Well, it's all crime fighting, man. That's how it's been sold. That's, the first taste is free, right? Aren't they using the crack mentality? Anyway, I digress.
No, actually, you don't digress, because to me, this again is very important. If I had to obey all the laws when I was a cop,
you could not do that.
Every damn person now today should have to obey the damn Bill of Rights. Privacy,
you and I both agree on that.
security, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, numerous issues.
Well, even into the Sixth Amendment.
Yes.
So I mean, but those things don't matter anymore. That's an old document, BZ, and there's no validity to it anymore. You know that. I'm kidding, of course.
But you say it in jest, but sadly, day by day, week by week, year by year, our Bill of Rights is being torn down by, make no mistake, by both sides of the aisle. Both.
Well, and this is where they're targeting here. So the news comes as the city grapples with its deadliest year on record, according to WLBT TV and FBI figures. 110 homicides have been reported in the city so far.
Okay, which city?
This is Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi. I guarantee you, folks, if you go to some reputable search engine and look up Jackson, Mississippi in the 1990s, you'll find that homicide rate at least twice what it is now then. I worked in the 90s. I took crimes in the 90s. I worked homicide in the 90s. Child abuse, sex assaults, robbery, crime, gun crime, personal crime, felonious crime was at its height in the 1990s. Don't believe people. That's what, again, particularly pisses me off when people in law enforcement or people who are law and order individuals or people on the left are saying gun crime is the worst. It's bullshit. Absolute raving bullshit. You apparently weren't alive in the 90s, didn't have to work that crap, and didn't go out to see dead bodies on every case that you had. You weren't there in the 90s. So Jackson, Mississippi, go look it up, folks. I bet crime was twice then what it is now. And that's an excuse to remove your privacy and your rights. It's an excuse.
As everything is today.
Yes.
You know, it's amazing to me. One of my frustrations with socialism is the fact that we're getting off far afield here, but
that's
not
okay.
Really, but what I work with and what I do, there's ethics, there's morals, there's rights, and there's wrong. Because it's way too easy in my line of work to drift to the dark side. Dark side's far more profitable.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm helping out a friend on a business email compromise that took place where the criminal, through the email system and a phishing attack, gained access, pretended to be somebody else within a company, and requested a change on the banking account numbers for a payment, and they were wired $25,000. So here's the interesting part. Was it wire fraud? Yes. Cross state lines, went from California to Texas where it was deposited.
Okay.
So that's clear. All right. The problem is this is so rampant that unless it's a big-ass number, the FBI or even local DAs will not touch it. So local law enforcement, it has to be 100K and above. That's how rampant it is, especially now in the age of COVID.
Well, and especially now in the age of leftist DAs, purposely inserted by George Soros, but that's a story for another day.
But it gets into, you know, I get calls from my clients going, Mike, how do I protect my data from the government? That was one of the things that we got from a number of mortgage companies during the Obama days. How do I protect the business's information and intellectual property from the federal government? How do we do this? How do we do that? I mean, there's rights being violated left and right. at will.
Yes.
And so those things, without fence posts, without understanding what our rights are, where they come from, and how you enforce these things, they can make up and do whatever they want to do. And we're seeing that real time right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
with impunity, and no one seems to care.
Yeah, you're an extremist if you care. But, we have to live within law. I mean, we're a nation of law. And you have to, in my world, live by those things. There has to be morals and ethics in what we do. And, for me anyway, if the client is not a good fit for us, we don't take the project. I'm really selective in who we work with.
Well, because in the long, you're thinking long run. You're thinking down the line. You're thinking 2 to 3 chess moves down the line when you decide that that's going to be a certain threshold for you.
There's a lot of business out there. There's a lot of opportunities. There's only so many projects in a year, new projects we can take on.
Right.
And I'm selective. It's one of the things that, I had a friend ask me this the other day. And when's the last time you fired a client? I said, probably about 10 years ago. But I said, I'm thinking about it right now with one.
Yeah, if for no other reason than self-protection. If no other reason than for self-protection. The dark side calls. The dark side is evil, is fun because it's easy and it's generally prosperous and it's a little bit more amusing than doing the right thing. I used to tell my department to try to get them in line in terms of risk management. And boy, did I piss off a couple of people, and that's one of the reasons that I never got promoted. Imagine that. But I would tell them, do the right thing, always. And here's the major reason why. I'm not stupid. I can make more money testifying against you than I can working for you. Oh, did that ever light some tails on fire?
Oh, I bet it did.
Yeah. So what have you got coming up, Mike Fitzpatrick? Anything in particular other than the fact that COVID is absolutely screwing up everything in terms of hacking and cybersecurity?
We're trying to find ways to, one, figure out what businesses are going to be left after this is all said and done.
Oh, my God, yeah.
It is the damage that this has done. BZ, before all this started, there were 5.7 million businesses in the United States with 100 employees or less. By all estimations, probably 40 to 43% of those businesses will never reopen. So you're talking about business death. And people can argue back and forth, but when you start a business, you give it life. You nurture it. You care for it. You cry over it. You sweat over it. All those things. It's a living, breathing entity. And you're going to have 2.5, 2.6 million business deaths due to COVID. Far more than individual. But it is, it's horrible all the way around. And so, community colleges here in California, for example, enrollment is down 22%. Budgets have been slashed 20%.
Oh, there are lots of other things that you could do the what I call the logical extension because of that. In any event, before you go, Mike Fitzpatrick, Jack Alexander in chat says, please ask, Mike, how good are VPNs from hiding your location from the government, for example? Okay, there's a reason for that chuckle.
There's the Fitzpatrick rule. I mean, there's Moore's law with speeds of processors, right? Every 18 months, processors increase. The Fitzpatrick law for cybersecurity is if man made it, man can break it. I mean, it really is that simple. Does it give you some protection? Yes. Are VPNs hackable? Absolutely.
Yeah. I used to say, and I might even have to amend this and make it closer. I used to say in 50 years, someone is going to want to build a time machine and go back and kill Admiral Grace Hopper. And nobody knows what that is, and nobody knows what that means until they look it up. And I used to think 50 years. Now I'm thinking maybe 20 years. People are going to want to build a time machine and go back and kill Admiral Grace Hopper.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, I'm a sci-fi guy, but not weird sci-fi guy. From the standpoint of one of my favorite sci-fi shows recently, and it's on Netflix, I think, too, is called Continuum.
Oh, okay.
And Continuum takes place in 2012 and is kind of the time period where it all sort of starts with the rise of the corporate Congress. Something there?
Yeah.
And it fast forwards to 2075, and it bounces back and forth. The technology that's in the show is stuff that we have now and will have in the next 5 to 7 years. All legit stuff. And so it's interesting because a time machine is involved in that, and it's about going back to the past to correct the future. And so if you haven't watched it, I think it's one of the better written sci-fi shows out there. But Continuum is good. But it's such a hard call from a technology standpoint. There's new technology that we're bringing out that a friend developed that actually allows you to hide your data in plain sight.
Okay.
And it makes it unhackable at the same time.
Okay. Well,
so we'll have to save that maybe for another show. But,
yeah.
There's some new stuff that we're doing and trying to figure out how to put it onto a box that people can use within a business and simplify the deployment of it. But it's an interesting technology that it would take something post-quantum computing to break the encryption, but it basically uses today's standards-based encryption, AES, Blowfish, Cha-Cha, and it allows us to switch between encryption standards on the fly and on a per packet, per character basis, if you will. So I can switch from AES 128 to Blowfish to AES 256 to Cha-Cha, and from a technology standpoint. And, oh, by the way, the VPN tunnel that it's in, think of it as a piano keyboard. It all goes down different chutes. So it makes it unhackable.
Shoot,
so it's a kind of a really cool technology.
Well, Mike Fitzpatrick, thanks for being here. I harken back to the days when everybody thought that PGP, pretty good privacy, was the cat's meow. So I will have to have you back. All sorts of things. We didn't even get to talk about the election, but I got so much stuff to go on for the rest of the hour. So thank you for being here tonight, sir. I thank you ever so kindly. Folks, Mike Fitzpatrick. Thank you, sir. We're going to take a break, come back, let's see, right after this where do I begin? Day 2 of Life After Screwing the Pooch on everything possible. Oh, my God.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website www.jackalexanderexperiment.com BBS.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On ADL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I have returned. It's the beginning of the second hour. I don't really think that I'm going to go into overtime tonight because I've got so much material, and admittedly, Mike Fitzpatrick coming on was sort of a last-minute thing. Honestly, I had a hell of a time trying to find people that wanted to be on tonight. And I'm very, very happy and very gracious. It was very kind of Mike Fitzpatrick to come on at basically the last moment to talk about these kinds of things. I was going to go into California. There's so many things about California. I'll just gloss over them here, but I'll probably talk about them in depth a little bit later. Let's see. In the meantime, I think I have Jack on the phone. Jack, you there, sir?
Yes, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. What's up with you, senor?
How much of that communist potato juice you got left after the election?
Actually, I went out to Bevmo, which is Beverage and More. Oh, you should have seen this. Okay, quick story from BZ. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, BZ knew that this shit was going to hit. That is to say, Wuhan 19. So before all kinds of restrictions were put into place, BZ dropped in on Bevmo one day. And BZ cleaned out everybody. And I mean, I cleaned out a Bevmo. I cleaned Bevmo out of Kettle One. And I'm ashamed to... No, I'm not. I'm ashamed to say... No, I'm not. That I got about 10 to 11 of the 1.75 liter bottles of Kettle One. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether I still have any more left or whether I have the bulk of them left, because that would give you insight that I'm not here to provide. But let's just say that I may be visiting Bevmo in the future. But, hey... I like good potato water, nice potato water.
Well, you know, the way the complete clusterfuck is being covered in the Australian media, I just saw a headline from one of the major newspapers here. Biden, his time for a divided America was the front page headline.
They're trying to say it's his time to divide America? Oh, just like Obama.
Well, I don't know. I thought the way this publication leans, it's more, you know, they're playing the idea that Biden will be a soothing influence on a divided America, and which is how most of the media here are covering it. The fact that trade was, had never been so good between Australia and the United States as it was under Donald Trump. The fact that when the U.S. economy started surging forward, the Australian economy surged forward. It made Australia more competitive in the Asian market. It put China on notice that when you can't dump all of those cheap electronics in the United States, well, because you didn't put international power supplies in it, oh, bugger, you can't dump it in Australia either, because we run on 240 volts here. And
right.
See, this is why I thought Donald Trump was so absolutely fantastic dealing with China. Canada, United States, Mexico, I think, are the only three countries that run 110 volts at 60 hertz. Everyone else is running 50 hertz and around the 200 to 240 volt range.
Good point. Yeah. Okay.
So when Donald Trump said, okay, we're going to start putting tariffs and restrictions on electronics imports, China didn't have a market to go to. And that's why they caved in a lot of stuff when it came to dealing with President Trump.
Nice.
Because, and this is the sort of brilliant tactician he is. Now, I did see one post floating around that what we are seeing now and the close races were and this whole idea of making it look like Biden was going to win, I've seen that reported as an actual war-gamed tactic by the Trump team.
The Trump team.
By the Trump team to expose just how rampant electoral fraud is.
Well, now that is true. It is rampant. Have you got some time to hang on, Jack, for a little bit?
Oh,
and me to run.
Man. Always.
And me to run through some stories, because like I say, I don't have time to go into them really in depth. Recently, California Governor Newsom confirmed and still is doubling down on this. He said back in July of 2020 that he is going to continue with his 2021 minimum wage increase. So California's minimum wage is going to rise. That's set for January 20th, 2021. And let's see, I think it's $13 from $12 for employers with up to 25 employees, and to $14 from $13 for those with at least 26 employees. And he's going to go ahead and do that in the time of COVID. This is really smart. Oh, while we're talking about California, also, I wanted to talk about that. Sergeant Booker, watermark ballots, no, they're not a true thing. We discovered that on November 3rd, Jack, you might find this interesting. Two things occurred. One in California, and another one that I'm going to mention about Oregon. On November 3rd, San Francisco voters decided that they were going to approve a measure, so they did, that would allow San Francisco to eliminate police. I'm going to go into that a little bit more in depth next week. Then, on November 3rd, these are November 3rd results, Oregon voters, one state up on our northern border, the lovely state of Oregon, decided that they were going to decriminalize street drugs like, heroin, crank, and cocaine. So just when we thought that California had the harvest on the market, a lock on the crazed, drug-addled, psychotic people, they're going to be making a massive rush for Oregon very shortly. Oregon, you are so going to love that. And there are some things that I learned on November 3rd. Sean and I haven't had a chance to really discuss this, but the obviosity, see, I just made up a new word, folks, obviosity. The obviosity of this to me is, well, Captain Obvious. That's this. Fox ain't what it used to be. And Fox deliberately decided that it would be a good idea to stick its thumb into the eye of every viewer that it has that is making it money. Then today, I heard this. John Roberts on Fox. I questioned John Roberts before when he got pissed off because people took him to task saying that President Trump was a racist because of Charlottesville, parenthesis, oh, bullshit, end of parenthesis. John Roberts on Fox said he thinks Trump taking what evidence exists before a court to challenge results, voter results, is illegitimate. Though he said the hanging Chads thing, that in Florida in 2000, that was legitimate. But what this baboon doesn't understand is completely ignoring the fact that Republicans can't even get close enough to the ballots to see and determine that. So I think one conclusion that we can make is that Fox News absolutely hates its audience, and they're aiming for a new one. They're aiming for a new one because the new kids that are in charge of Fox News have decided that they need to move towards the CNN MSNBC model, despite the fact, folks, Jack, I'm sure you already know this, CNN lost more money in this past year than they ever have before, losing eyeballs and losing cash. And Fox wants to double down on being CNN. So let me make things abundantly clear. This is BZ's official position from now on. Calling elections early is election interference. Skewed and misleading polls, which clearly were way the fuck off, that is election interference. What we're seeing this week, following November 3rd, zero transparency is election interference. The other thing I have to ask is, when any of this comes around and we hear stories of this, why are only Biden votes found around the nation? Why are no Trump votes ever found around the nation? And you know the answer for that. Now, the funny thing, Jack, about Australia is that you and I think, are both, I know I am, and I believe you are too, we are familiar with the Transition Integrity Project.
Yes.
And it was basically a bunch of leftists, and I think a leftist Republican or two thrown in just for good measure, saying, okay, we're going to have to war game what's going to happen during a bunch of potential ways that this could all transpire, and a lot of them ended up with violence, military involved, etc. But we knew that. We knew already that it's the leftists that are the violent individuals. So before I go on a little bit more, because I have some really interesting audio cuts that occurred today. As it stands right now, U.S. House election results are not the blue wave, let's say, that these people thought it was going to be. As a matter of fact, I suspect that Nancy Pelosi's job as Speaker of the House is in fervent danger these days because of the cock-up she made. By AOC and the Squad of 4, which is soon to be the Squad of 5 because of the dipshit that was elected in Missouri. But that's a story for another day. But right now, when they thought it was going to be a blue wave and they were going to kick the living ass of every Republican right now, today, as it stands in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, you need 218 for a majority. And before that, the Democrats had a very serious majority in the House, or at least they do currently right now. As it stands, however, because not everything is returned yet, the GOP gained about 10 seats. Let me tune that in. Let me let you know that again. The GOP gained about 10 seats in the House that the leftists lost. So you need 218 for a majority in the House. There are 435 seats in the House of Representatives. As it stands tonight, as far as I can tell, it's 208 Dems. It's 193 for the GOP, folks, that ain't that far away. And there weren't no blue wave. It's as simple as that. Now, right now, in the 116th Congress, there are 232 Dems and there are 197 Republicans. So they still have a ways to go. All the votes are not in, but blue wave, no. It ain't going to happen. It isn't happening, for that matter. So, continuing on, there's a guy named Madison Cawthorn. He's 25 years old. I think he's the youngest dude that's come into Congress. About 7 o'clock that time. There's something going on, Jack, about 7 o'clock that time.
Go on.
This guy, we have to look to the future in the GOP. And this guy named Madison Cawthorn, the dude is 25 years old. And he says it's time for a new Republican Party. And I have to go along with him. I have to believe that it is definitely time for a new Republican Party. We can't continue to go on and remain viable. He said some interesting things. He said, I don't think we need to have a bigger tent. I genuinely believe we need to have a bolder tent. I think too long the Republicans have acted with timidity on issues where we should be leading. Thank you. Exactly. I liked him already when he sent out this tweet to AOC. Cry more, lib. So in a lengthy statement to Fox News, what he ended up saying was the days of AOC and the far left misleading the next generation of Americans, they are numbered. Tonight, the voters of Western North Carolina, which is where he got elected, choose to stand for freedom and a new generation of leadership in Washington. That couldn't have been more timely. So, let's see if I have my numbers here. The Senate, now, we've got, now this, to my knowledge, these are the newest stats in the Senate. It's 48 for the Democrats and 48 for the GOP. But there's still some more votes to come in behind that. And as I indicated in the president, in terms of the Electoral College, it's 264 for Joe Biden. It's a 270 threshold to win. And it's 214 for Donald Trump. That's one of the reasons that Nevada is critical. Nevada has 6 electors. And Nevada, as far as I know, still isn't going to come in until tomorrow. Maybe not even tomorrow. Because they still have a number of hundreds of thousands of votes yet to count. My guess is they may not even be done in Nevada until Monday. But if Nevada, for whatever reason, that state with 6 electors goes to Joe Biden, Biden wins. But the other thing that I want to emphasize to everyone tonight is don't give up. Do not give up. This isn't over by a far margin. This is not over. We're going to, I believe, keep the Senate. We have closed the margin on the House to the point that I think it has really thrown them for a loop. That having been said, though, we must remain resolute because this kind of crap from an election night in Portland is going to happen. So what occurred is a bunch of leftist protesters go into the streets of southeast Portland. Now, these are older homes in what you would consider to be a nice area of Portland. They decided that it was good policy to confront all these Portlanders in their homes, including a family with a Biden-Harris sign. So listen to some of the things that they're saying. That's my Biden sign. Don't destroy anything. Be peaceful. No one cares about your white-ass opinion. Who do you think you are telling black people how to protest You're fucking white-ass privilege, old man. You ask for a peaceful protest, it's white supremacy. Listen again. So asking for a peaceful protest in Portland now is white supremacy. So, essentially what has to occur is this. And people say it's possible. People are still talking about Arizona. Trump seems to think that he can pull out Arizona. Maybe he can. I don't know. But I was trying to do the numbers in my brain. And I'm bad with numbers just like I'm bad with the digital world. Okay, so 264 to 214. If Biden takes Nevada at 6, that's 270 for Joe. Done. Game over for the presidency. Trump pretty much has to then run the table. Alaska, there's 3 electors. Georgia, 16. He's getting really thin in Georgia. North Carolina, 15. People seem to think that's possible. That's doable. Pennsylvania is a big fucking cipher. Pennsylvania is screwed up big time. They got 20 electors. Who knows about the weird-ass Pennsylvania? Okay, so if he gets...
I'd heard that a judge had ruled on Pennsylvania in Trump's favor.
On one of those things, but they still are not finished counting. Okay, so if he gets all of those states that I just mentioned, then okay, let's say he gets Nevada also for the 6 electors. That's a total of 274. And therefore, that's it. That's the win right there. Now, today, this is the audio that I want everybody to hear. And this is what you're not going to hear on the American Media Maggots. Jack, maybe you already played this today. The Republicans went out to Pennsylvania, and I want you to listen because according to elections law, you can have people in to monitor elections. So listen to what is said by the GOP in Pennsylvania, actually just outside Philadelphia.
We're about to do a press conference.
Tell them we're live on TV.
Right now we're live on TV.
Corey Lewandowski is here.
The sheriff is going to come to enforce the order.
Hey everyone, we wanted to give you an update. They are still not in compliance. Our votes are being suppressed. We cannot count the votes properly. What's happening is they have moved the barrier up to 6 feet, but they took away the ballot machines that were in the front row and moved them to the back of the building. It's unbelievable what they're trying to do to our votes that have been legally cast. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, your legal votes must be tabulated, and they're not doing that. They will not let us see anything. They're trying to drown us out now where we can't be heard. We're not going away.
This is, by the way, former AG of Florida, Pam Bondi.
And now we're going to take further remedy to fix this. There's a woman who was in there that Corey's going to talk to you about who represented the city with your tax dollars, and he's going to tell you what she's doing. But we are not going to stand for this. We're not going anywhere. They are defying a court order by a judge, and this is not the last of this.
Listen, guys, your taxpayer money here in the city of Philadelphia is going to a private attorney by the name of Michelle Hangley. And what she said was she would determine if the court order was valid or not. And I'll be happy to release the video of her. They have 8 attorneys fighting us to see these ballots inside. The court order is in effect. They will not give us access. And the sheriff has decided not to come down here to enforce that court order. The sheriff of your county will not come down and enforce a court order.
That's a big problem. Now, remember that I'm going to come back to this particular issue. This is highly relevant. Relevant? Did I just say relevant? Well, I mean relevant. So I'm talking to Jack Alexander right now. He's on the phone. We're going to go to a very brief break, and we'll be right back after this, okay?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right, we're back. So please, join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And I'm back. That's basically the end of the promos for the rest of the show. Got Jack Alexander on the phone, and I was playing an issue that had Corey Lewandowski and Pam Bondi, and they were talking about how, despite a judge's order, they were not being allowed into an area in Philadelphia so that they could monitor votes. This is critical. This is important because something else happened. Now, when law enforcement stops enforcing a judge's order, you and I both know that in a nation of laws, allegedly abiding by the rule of law, you don't have law. So if you have a court order, a piece of paper that says X must happen, proffer it to the local law enforcement, and they purposely, because he's going to tell you this in just a second, they tell you basically to pound sand. That's what leftists and Democrats want as the future of law enforcement. The reason I bring this up is because a codicil just passed in Kings County. That surrounds Seattle. The voters decided that they want the sheriff historically across the United States of America. Sheriffs are elected positions, therefore they historically, again, have not been answerable to government entities. In other words, a chief of police answers to the city council or the mayor if it's a strong mayor model, that kind of a thing, or city manager. And if they don't like the way the chief of police is doing his or her job, they just fire their ass. A sheriff is as independent as you can get right now because every 4-6 years, whatever it is, according to the various states involved, you got to vote for the sheriff. Well, if the sheriff doesn't get enough votes, the sheriff is out, and you get another sheriff in. Kings County now went to the point where, and this is coming to California, always spell it with a K, guaranteed, told you. Kings County now voted to have the sheriff appointed. So you're going to appoint police chiefs. You're going to appoint sheriffs, making their independence absolutely immaterial now, because that's the way leftists want it. They're in the process of strangling our military. The last bastion of force is law enforcement, and also through district attorney offices throughout the United States. So I want to let you know, especially with this show, this is coming. Well, it's not coming. It's here. Corey, go ahead.
What is going on in this city? What are you hiding? Open up the doors. Let us in. Let us 6 feet away so that we can...
Let me remind you.
Court order is in effect. They will not give us access, and the sheriff has decided not to come down here to enforce that court order.
That's what I said. The sheriff is not coming down here to enforce that. Well, that's exactly what leftists want in the future. They just got that in Kings County.
The sheriff of your county will not come down and enforce a court order. What is going on in this city? What are you hiding? Open up the doors, let us in, let us 6 feet away so that we can have a free and fair election.
Stop. BZ always says, do the logical extension or do BZ's reverse theory. What would happen in a similar situation where Republicans in a Republican county or a right-leaning county or a right-leaning area or city were telling Democrats or leftists or members of the American media maggots, you can't come in, and the sheriff, local law enforcement says, by the way, whatever court order you have, we piss on it because we're not going to enforce it. You would never, ever, ever hear the end of that shit.
Whether you voted for Donald Trump or you voted for Joe Biden, everybody has a right to witness what's transpiring here. This makes it look like a kangaroo court. We deserve better, and we're not leaving till we witness every single vote that transpires in here.
The big problem with that is an assload of votes have already occurred and gone down the drain. For example, PJ Media wrote about this. In Pennsylvania, a bunch of military ballots were found in the trash. Most were Trump votes. Imagine that. Trump votes. It goes on and on. I think I've got some audio cuts here. So locked out Detroit. Now that was Philadelphia. Locked out Detroit Republicans were furious over the lack of access to that. That just recently. So have you noticed a common theme here, Jack? It seems to be leftist enclaves where this is occurring.
Yes, and all of the battleground states too. Real Clear Politics, in conjunction with the World Population Review, put out a table comparing the number of people registered in these states and the number of votes that were issued. Nevada had more people voting at a 125% turnout. Pennsylvania, 109% turnout. Minnesota, 107%. 106% in North Carolina. 105% in Wisconsin. 105% in Michigan. Arizona, 101%. Georgia's also on this list, but they've got 96% turnout, which historically would be the first time in Georgia's history that
it hasn't cheated.
That so many people actually voted who were registered. I believe historically in Georgia, the votes cast to number of people registered is around the 55 to 60% mark, looking back over previous years. Yet almost a 100% turnout.
Yeah. Now, see, I'm going to have much more about this stuff in depth. I'm just going to, all I have time for tonight is just to kind of gloss over this stuff. In Detroit.
And the other thing is that when you break the differences down between these numbers, they're exactly the same. The numbers come back to within a couple of hundred of those massive spikes that go 100% to Biden. You know, those numbers correlate in every single one of these cases.
Well, like I said, transparency is dead. And if you want to negatively influence elections, go ahead and keep pulling this shit. As I was going to reference, Detroit, absentee ballot counting chaos. The workers there decided they were going to block the windows so that they would bar observers. That stuff is just insane. Here's more. This is an audio cut of Detroit voter fraud. This is voter fraud in Detroit, by the way, which is criminal. Just thought I'd tell you.
So I'm in downtown Detroit at the TCF Center, which is in the heart of Detroit, in the heart of the D. And I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, could you do another Facebook Live and explain where you're at and why you're here? You can see behind me, that giant room behind me is where they are contesting ballots. So something that's very interesting that happened here in Detroit is, I just talked to a guy that's been here all night. They were ready to shut down the precinct. They had counted all the ballots. Everything was good. Everything went smoothly. And then it was at about 4 a.m. that 3 vehicles arrived. A van, a Chrysler 300, and a Ferrari with 130,000 plus ballots. He said he was astonished as they started counting the ballots. He was astonished that every single ballot, like literally 100% of that 130,000 ballots were all Biden ballots.
Okay, I want to remind everybody, though, that this is November 4th when this occurred. So it takes people, come on, you got to understand, it takes people a while in order to gin up false ballots that probably should have been on the 3rd. So it took them an extra 24 hours to make sure that they make all the ballots are for Biden.
That hadn't been delivered to the precinct before the cutoff time for this precinct. So obviously there's, that's just a big irregularity, something that points to...
That's called voter fraud.
Large-scale voter fraud, and it literally is being contested by the President of the United States in a lawsuit right now for the state of Michigan. We literally have people that watched it happen. I talked to people that are here. They're like, what? 130,000 ballots that haven't been verified.
Yeah, but just talk to all the other people that say, this is nothing but hearsay. Hearsay, hearsay, hearsay. Oye, oye, oye. Now, here's also, in Michigan, a Republican lawyer being escorted out in Michigan, and this would not have existed. These are cops escorting out a Republican lawyer who wanted to watch. This is lawful, by the way.
What'd you do?
I asked her, what's the count? What's your name?
What's your name?
He said, I asked what the count is, and they're throwing me out. And behind in the background, you can hear applause.
Another attorney.
What's his name?
James Regal or something? Another attorney?
James Regal?
If that's what he said. Nick Kawatma was here?
Yes, he got kicked out.
He's my old neighbor.
He's from...
No, I know. He's from...
Senator Patrick Kennedy.
Were they going to tell his name? Or?
Yeah. Okay. It sounded like James Regal or something, but I couldn't tell if that's what he said. Find out what his name is.
Give me your phone number when I'm out, then I'll call you. Call me at 248.
Okay, so that's occurring. Then there's also this. A Michigan United States Postal Service whistleblower claims that ballots received after the 3rd by the U.S. Post Office, they got backdated postmarks. Now, this is from Project Veritas, from James O'Keefe. I'm going to play this. I hope that you can hear it. I might have to... They had to change his voice. James O'Keefe had to change the voice of this guy. But in order to comply with the law, post office officials here in this video said that they were stamping them with the days, with not the day that they got. Well, just listen to the video.
Where you work?
I work in the Traverse City Post Office, more specifically the Barlow branch.
Traverse City Post Office.
Your boss told you and your colleagues something that shocked you this morning. What was it?
We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general, separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them.
Separate them at the end of the day so that ballots can be hand stamped.
With the previous
With the previous day's
day's date.
date.
Today is November 4th for clarification.
Today is November 4th for clarification. So they were told by their boss at the Postal Service, backdate them one day.
Who is your boss, and what is his title?
Jonathan would be a direct supervisor, yes. As of right now, he is the opening supervisor for the Barlow Branch Post Office. So and this is anecdotal, carrier down at another office said they watched the postmaster doing it. If it were just a typical day, it would be clerks doing it up at the distribution center.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd. The Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into. Yes.
What made you come forward?
That's sketchy. I don't like sketchy. It screams corruption. Also, knowing the post office's leanings politically, it didn't seem quite right.
How unusual. An individual with ethics. But this is occurring in the post office. You and I already knew this. This is one of the reasons I told people, and I made sure that it was done for me as well. Don't put your ballots now or in the future. Don't hand them over to the damn post office. They won't get there, or they'll get there late, or something otherwise will occur to it. By the way, even though this is hearsay, this is called PC, or probable cause, to open an investigation on every one of these incidents you've heard so far.
What is your message to other postal workers who see things like this?
Report it. How are we supposed to have any integrity in this country if we are just going to let things slide based on a scaling issue?
Are you afraid of retaliation against you?
Oh, yeah.
I've had whistleblower policies backfire on me in the past, so yes.
We'll have to reach out to Jonathan Clark for comment. Hey, is this Jonathan? Yes. Hey, I'm a reporter with Project Veritas and James O'Keefe here, and I have information that you guys have been stamping ballots with the previous date, November 3rd. He just hung up. He just hung up the phone on me.
Now, to any properly thinking individual, these are called clues. It's called lack of transparency. It's called, this is probable cause. These are reasons to open investigations. These are reasons to believe that maybe not the best stuff that's working in the interest of everyone is going on right now. And I think everybody would have to agree. Then we go back to Detroit. There's a Detroit city clerk who says 500 ballots were not lost in the mail. Oh, but they were spoiled. It was reported earlier in the week that mail was lost, and I never said that, said Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey. Ballots were spoiled, and ballots are spoiled for a number of reasons. Spoiled now means null and void, that they wouldn't be able to process through the voting machines they set up at the TCF Center. So she says they're working with the post office to see what happened to those 500 ballots. The local postmaster went and looked at the data, and he went to those zip codes and more than a few, repeating they went inside these stations, they did a sweep, and they did not find ballots sitting in piles. But it's still a question mark. Oh, I've got more. I have more. That could definitely go on. Here's a volunteer in Michigan, and you see the thread, the common thread through all of this? Volunteer in Michigan claims she found a box full of 500 ballots from people not on any voter rolls.
So I have the Baxter, Mr. Baxter, whatever, had to go to the head guy because I want to see every one of those ballots, copy them down, copy down the precinct, because they don't show up on any list. So I just grabbed one box. It's 500 names of people that are not on the register, they're not on the supplement list.
Were you in there? She was in here this morning.
No, I've been in there all day. I just left.
And
So why won't they let anybody into view?
Their capacity. They said there's capacity. In the morning, you could just
Yeah, it's capacity. Bullshit alert.
walk right in. So I trained and walked
Because
right
of
in.
COVID, they're saying capacity
We
now?
all have masks on.
No,
We'll put our mask on.
I think it's the poll workers
They
don't
wanna
like us
see
there,
you.
and they're very rude.
But you're allowed legally to go. It doesn't say there's
Yeah,
capacity.
that's why we have the Supreme Court order.
And not to let us in the building?
Not to let you in the building. It's
Because
bizarre.
this building is...
Okay, keep listening to this. I am building to a point. I will not be doing any overtime tonight, folks, but I am building to a point. More detail next week.
It's not a capacity. And you know,
Maybe
there's
the
those
room
of us
is.
that leave, like a few people.
So, and that was another audio cut that I had. Continuing voter fraud. Then let's talk about social media fraud for a second, because this occurred with me today. I started to make a tweet from the federalistpapers.org where it said something similar to 89% of the Wisconsin voter turnout called question numbers doesn't make sense. So I had the link to that. I put it up in a tweet, and this is what I got every time. First it said, oh, try it again. We can't help you right now. Try it again. So then I finally got, we can't complete this request because this link has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially harmful. Visit our help center to learn more. Number one, can't complete this request. What they mean is, because I speak leftist, we won't complete this request. Partners. I speak leftist, so what that means is our partners are DNC, BLM, Antifa, and Russia. And the help center, yeah, Twitter helps abso-fucking-lutely nothing. But I had to go on that. Here's another story. Michigan, Wisconsin election officials refused to explain the sudden Biden voter influx. And again, this goes to transparency. Do you think Republicans or people in red states, red election areas or districts could get away with saying nothing or refusing to say anything? Elections officials in Michigan and Wisconsin refused to explain Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's sudden and dramatic vote tally increase that occurred in both states Wednesday morning. That would not fly. Period. End of statement. At all. Then there's this. This guy was on Tucker Carlson earlier tonight, and Tucker had him on, and he explained then, and here he's now going to explain. He's essentially a whistleblower. He's a registered Democrat. The guy's name is Brian McCafferty. He's in Philadelphia, and listen to what he has to say.
My name is Brian McCafferty. I'm a registered Democrat in the city of Philadelphia. Today, I'm at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and I am overseeing the ballot counters. I will let you know the corruption that is going on here. They will not allow us within 30 to 100 feet to supervise the ballots being counted.
Right, because you can see things, I don't know, did they issue you a set of binoculars or maybe a telescope?
This is a coup against the President of the United States of America, and I want to call out the Mayor of Philadelphia, James Kenney, the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, who tweeted that there's no way Donald Trump can win President of the United States of America, and also the District Attorney of Philadelphia, Larry Krasner. I can't believe what I'm seeing right before my eyes.
District Attorney of Philadelphia, Larry Krasner, by the way, is a George Soros paid individual.
This has nothing to do with Joe Biden or Donald Trump. This has to do with our democracy, and I will tell you, there is corruption at the highest level in the city of Philadelphia.
Well, that's pretty obvious. But wait, it doesn't stop, does it? Here's the story that I was being referenced to. This is from the Federalist Papers. Record-setting 89% Wisconsin voter turnout called into question. Numbers don't make sense. This is what Twitter didn't want me, said it was not going to allow me to post. Now, Jack, you tell me what's so evil about this article. Record-setting 89% Wisconsin voter turnout called into question. Numbers don't make sense. For President Donald Trump, winning Wisconsin in 2016 was not only somewhat unexpected, but also a big bonus for his path to garnering 270 electoral votes. It was clear at the time that residents of the state believe in what the president could do for them. Fast forward to 2020. By most predictions, Trump was expected to hold the state, given the economic prosperity he's experienced under his admin, to include job growth and a number of other positive metrics. Instead, several bizarre and in some cases unexplainable things seem to have happened in the Badger State that has a number of political analysts and conservative pundits scratching their heads. Now, I can't post about pundits scratching their head, Jack Alexander on Twitter. I was forbidden from sharing that story on Twitter. Forbidden. Why?
Censorship. I mean, it has really gone to a point where they don't care anymore. You know, they really do not care. We will censor everything. We have these legal protections, even though they're violating the terms of them, and it's beyond a joke what's going on. And probably many of the stuff that I've tried to post out and had rejected is exactly the same stories that you've tried to post out and had turned back as well.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I got suspended for 30 days from Facebook, my second 30-day suspension. Folks, I'm going to have to wrap it up for this Thursday night. Although it is Friday in the land of Oz, where Jack resides right now, as much as he would love to be in the United States, much more so than Australia these days. You know, it wasn't long ago that I used to think Australia was the cat's pajamas and that I wanted to be there. However, after having met and spoken to Jack on any number of occasions, Australia is about the last damn place that I would look to go, especially for its lack of freedoms. Jack, before we go and I wrap this up, tell people a little bit about your show and where it can be heard and found, and or any social media you care to mention, sir.
It's called the Jack Alexander Experiment. I do a video and audio podcast 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And you'll find it on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, Magabook, wherever good audio podcasts are found, at least for now. I'm looking, because I'm getting more and more sensitive, I'm looking at options and trying to work out the finances at, maybe trying to find some other way of getting the podcast out, because right across the board, my numbers have been killed. But if you'd like to support me, that's where you can. So Facebook, YouTube, Parler, Magabook, just do a search for the Jack Alexander Experiment or go to jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. And perhaps with luck, you and I will both be back here next week. Thanks, sir. Appreciate your being here.
You're welcome, BJ.
Anyway, that was Jack Alexander. I will be here next week on Tuesday and Thursday nights. Tentatively, next Tuesday, I have Melanie Colette on the air. And she's going to be talking about being a black in America, being a black female in America, and having the temerity, damn her, to vote Republican. And then we might, if we have any other time, I don't think we will, we might be able to talk money, because she has Money Talk with Melanie, her show right here on SHR. But I don't think we're going to be able to get to any of that. Because if you think the Democrats are through insulting black Americans, have you got another thing coming? Oh.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. Now, if you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at least for a while, until they already killed me for 12 hours on Twitter a week and a half ago. But I'm back. I'm just not on Facebook. Won't be back on Facebook until November 24th. Anyway, on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. And promotional consideration is, of course, by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. 737 MAX is going to be coming back, I have been told. And also promotional consideration by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust Also, thanks to my my personal KC-135 kettle one refueling team with whom I will be consorting, guaranteed. Tick this one to the bank in less than an hour. Thanks to Mike Fitzpatrick for being here in the first hour. Thanks to everybody who was listening live on Facebook, trying to listen live on YouTube, boy was that a cock-up, and listening live on Spreaker. Thanks for listening in podcast. Everybody have a great weekend. Who the hell knows what's going to happen next? God bless, take care, be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.